You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast with Sinan and Kaan Bayazit.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru aksiyon kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Zuma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet. Ve gol!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Black Eagles podcast. It's Monday, the day after we beat Sivasspor and remain perfect under Giovanni van Bronckhorst in the Turkish Super League. We go into the international break now with 9 points out of 3 games, so 9 out of 9. My name is Kaan Bayazit. As always, I am joined by my co-host Sinan from New York City and my good friend Kartal from Scotland. Guys, how are you doing?
Yeah, we're doing
Excellent.
good. Doing good.
Excellently.
Happy haircut, Kaan.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, look at that! Look at you! Look at that!
My dad's back from Turkey, so I went. We went yesterday before the game, and my hairdresser, my Turkish barber, is over there. So I went 2 months without a proper haircut. Like Kim trimmed it a little bit, like a couple of weeks ago, because it was getting way too long. Yeah, I needed to get a haircut. Boys, we're going to be a little less long-winded than usual because it's school again in Belgium here. It's the 3rd of September today. So today was the first school day, and when it's the 2nd. Okay, great, honey. Thank you. It's the 2nd of September, and that means tomorrow it's a school day again. So I need to wrap this up by 10 because his bedtime really is 9:30. So I'm already kind of pushing it. So today we aren't going to delve too much into the latest transfer news. Thank God there isn't anything concrete yet. Well, thank God for me, not for us as a whole. So we're just going to talk about the games today. There are some rumors. We may touch on them briefly, but you know what? The UEFA registration period ends on the 4th of September. So that's Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. So for us,
The fifth.
In Turkey on the 5th at 1 o'clock at night, but it's essentially on the 4th at 23:59 Central European time, essentially.
Right,
So
right.
on Thursday is the last day that we can do transfers. I expect movement on Wednesday. Just gonna put that out there. So yeah, we will be back on Friday then to cover said movement. Hopefully, knock on wood. Anyway, boys, that was it for my long intro speech. Let's start talking about the Sivasspor game. Who of you would like to share their thoughts first?
Yeah.
You go ahead, Kartal.
I'll go. It wasn't the most exciting games. It was a bit boring, to be honest. But at the same time, it was a very well played out defensive game plan from us. Like in the terms that we didn't give them one chance. Like I think they had one header that was somewhat dangerous. They had absolutely nothing. Whereas like maybe we didn't create a lot, but we had a good few half chances, like through like Hikimolo and like Gedson and stuff like that. And then obviously we scored 2 goals as well. One being a penalty and another one obviously was from their mistake, but it's still a great goal from Gedson. So it was a perfect performance in the way where we done better than the opponent. We didn't give them anything. All right, it wasn't flashy. It wasn't exciting. Like it wasn't like Lugano where it was chance after chance, but we got the job done. And you need to have these sort of wins. This was a game that we controlled from start to finish, albeit not in the most flashiest of ways. But you need to win these types of games, especially against the type of opposition like Sivasspor, where my co-host Kaan Bayazit wrote a great tweet, I thought, where he said they didn't even go out to get like a point or a draw. Well, maybe a point, but definitely didn't go out for a win, for sure. They just went out not to get thrashed. I think that was a great tweet from Kaan to sum up Sivasspor's plan. So to be able to even do what we done against them, just contain them completely when they tried to come at us, and done enough to win the game like that. That was enough.
Yeah, I think Bülent Uygun had just made his moves, because we scored right after he put on some offensive subs, like a minute or two after that. I think we scored the second goal, and I just had the feeling this entire game that the plan was, it doesn't matter if we concede, if we can keep them at 1-0, we're just going to hold them off as long as we can, and then in the last 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to try to sneak a goal. That's how I thought their game plan was. Sinan, what was your take on the match?
Yeah, I thought it was a really well played match all around. I think you have to factor in, right, we're coming off a midweek match as well, so there was fatigue issues, inevitably. But still, like, we held our shape. I think we built on a lot of our strengths that we've had so far, right? Like, I don't know if we'll be held to many clean sheets by our opponents. You could say that much. And then on the flip side, you could probably argue that our biggest weakness coming into this match was on defensive side, right? Like, and we've talked about how we hadn't seen our actual fully formed back line yet with the new transfers and everything. Mm-hmm. And so we got our first glimpse of that, and we also got our first very definitive clean sheet, right? Like, as Kartal said, and it's worth repeating, they had 0 big chances, at least according to Fatma, which is notoriously a little conservative on that end. But they gave us quite a few on the other side where, I think most would say we didn't create enough chances, and yet, they registered some on our end. So I think, as Kartal said, they only really had that one header. They had one shot on target, which was that one header, and they never looked like threatening at all. It was. Yeah. I felt calm the whole match. It felt like we were in control. If there was a moment of slippage or one weak pass, someone would make up for it. We had like a plan B and a plan C at all times. It felt like, and it's so great to see that. It's nice to see us playing with some actual vision of what we're doing there, cohesively, collectively. So yeah, I thought it was a great performance, to be honest.
Yeah, fully agree. Let us know what you thought about the performance tactically and just in general in the comments, guys. And we'll get to your comments, of course, in a little while. Just to pick in on what you guys are saying, this is I don't remember many games as a Beşiktaş fan over the last 20 odd years where I felt where we had the opponent completely locked down, like they couldn't do anything really. That said, I think there was a free kick around the 86th minute or a corner at around the 86th minute, and I just remember because I was getting worked up a little bit. I was getting annoyed. We were fully in control, but it was still 1-0, and I was like, we should have killed this 20 minutes ago. Like, we should have scored that second goal. And normally when you score a goal against an Anadolu team, they start to open up a little bit, but that was completely not the case here. They
shut down even more.
They kept their formation completely, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. Actually, I have a very nice little still image of that. But like, they were so disciplined, and you got to give them kudos. And you also can't forget, guys, this is a team that took points off of Fenerbahce last season. The Sivasspor draw, that's where they lost the championship last season. We can't forget that. This is one of the sides in the league that you would expect maybe to drop points against. Obviously not at home if you want to make a serious run for the title, but Sivasspor is, on paper, one of the toughest opponents in the league right now. If you look at Galatasaray and Fenerbahce's opponents of the last couple of weeks, like take, for example, Hatayspor. I think they got 1 point so far from 4 games. Take Rizespor now, back-to-back losses. They lost again the other day, 1-0 against Kasımpaşa at home. So they're the teams they've played so far, they haven't been doing so well. Look at our opponents that have played, other than Antalyaspor, who I don't think are doing well either. But Samsunspor won all their games after losing to us. They just won 3-0 away at Hatay. So I do think so far we've had tougher opposition.
For sure, yeah, for sure.
And despite that, for the first time in 11 years, we've won all 3 of our first games, which is, when you think about it, that's quite bad. But I think the match day 2, for some reason, for us is always, like, we always seem to slip up in match day 2. But this year, we've righted that wrong, and we've actually won our first 3 games for the first time in 11 years, which is crazy to think about, considering like we have won a few titles in that time period. But it was the first time in 11 years where we've won the first 3 games.
Yeah.
So it's very, very, very, very important.
I
And
think-
we've done it against harder opposition on paper as well compared to our opposition.
I think it was since the Slaven Bilic, the first season under Slaven Bilic, right? We won
We won.
5 in a row, I think, didn't we? Or 4?
4. And then the Galatasaray game happened where
Yeah.
everyone went on the pitch.
Where the people stormed the pitch, yeah. Sinan, you wanted to say something.
I was just saying, speaking of sort of unprecedented stats, to sort of back up how great the start of this year has been, Ciro Immobile's 7 goals is like far and away ahead of anyone in recent history, and I think we were all looking at that number. I don't know if you pulled that image, Khan, but like Mario Gomez had like 2 goals up to this point, which I still don't really understand.
Well, he
But,
didn't
like,
play the first 2
no,
games.
yeah, we
So
don't
he,
talk about
he made his debut on match day 3, I believe, against Başakşehir and scored a brace.
the old Chanel special. No, yeah, but nonetheless a very impressive stat, and I think it speaks to, you know, any doubts that we had about Ciro Immobile settling in and being a positive force for Beşiktaş. I think they've been allayed, right? I doubt anyone is really struggling with that anymore. And obviously, you want to see him maintain it, and his fatigue and all that, but maybe be able to play for longer stretches. But he's been a hit so far. No,
He's definitely been a hit so far, a huge hit, but obviously it's still very early days. Like,
yeah.
We need to see him maintain this for the full season before we can say he's a huge success. But so far, he's been brilliant, and obviously Rafa Silva as well has also been phenomenal. Rafa Silva's had 4 goals and 3 assists in 6 games.
Yeah,
and just to answer something that Yusuf wrote in the comments, by the way, Galatasaray away, yes, and this is obviously about Sivasspor. Galatasaray also dropped points against them away, but both Fener and Gala won easily at home. But I might be wrong on when Gala played them, but Fener definitely played them at home when I think Servet Cetin started the season. And Bülent Uygun took over later on, and that's obviously when they started performing. And that's also who was in charge yesterday, so that's also something to take in consideration. I don't remember when Gala played them, but they must have played them in the first half, in the second half of the season, I think, at home, because they didn't drop points for 17 games. So, sorry to cut you off there, Kartal. I just wanted to say that before I forget. Let's have another look at that stat from Ciro Immobile. Like you said, 7 goals in 6 appearances. Sinan, and of course in this game he scored the all-important opening goal. And I have this image up here. This is the handball situation from Uros Radakovic, who played for Ankaragücü last season, of course. So it was really stonewall, very clear. Were you guys a little bothered by the fact that this had to go to VAR?
Oh man, yeah. It was inexplicable, to be honest. And then even then, he had to take his time looking at it. It made no sense. It seemed like the most obvious penalty shot that I've seen in a long time. And it already, I feel like the way that handballs are judged is too hazy and sort of Byzantine. I never have any idea what counts anymore. But like when it's so obvious, we have to be done. Like we can't slow down the game to the extent that we have to look at this for 10 minutes. That was absurd.
I mean, maybe you don't see it on the pitch. That's fine. That's why I was there. But the part I didn't understand is why did the people in the VAR booth
The booth. Exactly. Yeah. Just immediately be like, oh, don't worry, it's a handball. Just
that was
like 100%.
Check. Like me and my dad watching the game together, and my dad was paying attention. It took them 4 minutes to decide to call him to the booth to have a look at it. That should have been check, watch it, 30 seconds. Yep, that's a handball. Come and have a look.
Exactly.
But they need to also look if there's an offside in the build-up. if there's a fall in the build-up, they need to check those things. So it is normal that it doesn't go within 30 seconds. I just think the ref should have seen this because he had a good view on the situation. But I guess you can see maybe it hit his abdomen instead of his arm or something. So I'm not super annoyed with it, I guess. But yeah, if it did take 4 minutes, was it including the VAR check or was it until they called him over? Surely not that.
Maybe I can't remember 100%. So it could have been all in it. Could have been just for to call him. So I don't want to say one thing and then
you're wrong.
Yeah.
You don't want to go on the record with it.
But it was pretty stonewall for sure.
Yeah, it took far too long. Like that's the gist of it. It did. Like you can't defend.
He didn't need to go look at the monitor, man. Like, come on.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And then there's another image I wanted to show you guys so that's the penalty. I don't think there's any discussion on that. It was pretty stonewall. Before I get to the next image, actually, we should probably talk about the situation with Ciro after 3 minutes. There's a free kick for Beşiktaş. And Manay and Ciro get into an altercation. And Ciro turns around and really, I think, on the match footage itself, it really does look like he's like giving him a proper punch in the face. From different angles, you can see that's not the case. But were you guys holding your heart at the point? Because I was like, oh, that's a red card.
Oh, yeah, of course. Especially with whether or not it deserved a card, you always know, with Turkish refs, there's a chance. But on the flip side, I think it's worth noting, and I think this is a good chance to mention it, they clearly came out with a game plan of getting under our skin, and trying to get little cheap calls, trying to cause these sort of interactions where the ref has to give a card to each player, as they always do. And we saw this later on in the match too, where they had a stonewall yellow, and then for some reason, because our guy was upset with being assaulted, he had to give a yellow to both players, which I hate that tendency. But yeah, it was obvious, like Manay went in and made contact that was awkward and bizarre, as if he knew he could get some sort of a reaction out of Immobile.
Yeah.
So I agree with what you're saying, Kaan, that or what I think you're going to be saying, that Immobile should like tamp down on that and not, react like that. But it was obvious that there was so much intention by Manay to cause that kind of an interaction. I feel like if the ref's going to give a card, that's a scenario where you do give it to both, right? Because Manay is the one who is creating that kind of interaction in the first place. So, yeah, that pissed me off.
Yeah, but Ciro 100% deserved to get carded as well, of course. And Manay, should have probably gotten booked as well for being the instigator. Kartal, what was your view on the situation? Were you holding your heart thinking he was going to get sent off? Kartal's gone. Kartal's gone, people.
I'm here. For some reason, there's something.
Look at that! I can see his shirt, but not.
We've got face. Rafa on the show and Ciro. What's this? Oh, Ciro.
So, Kartal, I think it's the background.
Yeah,
thing.
I think you need to.
Yeah. Oh wait, I think no. That's why. I think my camera was covered by my curtain. That's why.
Oh, that's funny.
So my opinion on the matter, it's a clear yellow card, 100%. Manay tries to get a reaction out of Immobile. Like he's kind of awkward contact, as Sinan was saying. There's no punch there. He just kind of pulls him down towards the ground. It's nothing dangerous. No risk of injuring the guy. So it's a clear yellow card. Obviously, the Galatasaray fans are trying to say it was a red, and Immobile is the new guy that's always protected by the refs. But that's bullshit. It was a clear yellow card, just like it was a clear yellow card in the Super Cup as well, with the position of Barış Alper. But Immobile needs to stay calm. You need to calm down, man. You need to take a deep breath in these situations and not lash.
Yeah.
There's no need to get involved in this bullshit.
It's part of this
game.
To
be honest,
right?
he's new to Turkey. He can't be aware of how.
But they do.
The refs are already targeting him.
Yeah, but this is very that they do that in Italy as well.
Exactly.
Of course.
It's not came from some
naive country.
Some naive.
Yeah, where the rules are perfectly enforced.
Italy is quite similar to us. There's a lot of
No, I just mean that especially Beşiktaş is going to get screwed by the refs, right? And he might not be fully aware of that just yet. And I think he'll probably come, it's hard to play for Beşiktaş without learning that lesson pretty early on in your career with the club. But, it is quite early still. And, luckily we're not talking about the ref overreacting and being, too much of a dickhead. Although he was,
dark in there,
the ref was bad.
Is there like a plane coming towards you?
No, not that I'm aware of.
You live in New
I'll turn the
York,
light
so.
Yeah, come on. No, it's not dark out or anything.
There you go.
Maybe a cloud went. I just turned the lights on, but
Okay.
but no, luckily we're not talking about a red card that was unfairly or egregiously given. Despite what was, I think, generally, and I agree with Grey Wolf over here, and I think a couple others mentioned it, the ref was pretty terrible.
It was another one of those young refs, I think, right? Or was it Ali Shansalan?
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was.
He didn't look like someone I recognized the name of.
No, for sure. Definitely, the referee's performance wasn't the greatest. I think that's an understatement. It was not, but in terms of Sivasspor, I really don't blame them. Their game plan, I think, is fine. They started off with a 5-4-1 formation. It was from the first minute until really the 89th when Gedson scored. It was clear that they only really had one goal in this game. That was limit the damage as long as possible, and then hope to score on the break, score on the counter. And maybe if we don't get this penalty, we don't find a way through. I doubt it, because leading into the penalty, we had that volley from Ciro on the Rasicka cross. I think that was Rasicka's only decent cross all night, because he had a few opportunities to put in a cross, and he had time on those opportunities. But that one was actually decent, and Ciro fluffs it a little bit, I think. We didn't hit it perfectly. If he hits that with full force, it's a goal for sure. That was the only real chance I can think of before the penalty. And then after the penalty, there isn't that much. I think in the second half, we had a plethora of chances late on in the game where we could have probably scored earlier. Once Mustafa came on, I think he had like 2 opportunities.
Yeah, he had like 2 or 3 little dinks that the keeper kind of reacted quickly to.
Yeah.
They weren't ones where you think, you need to score that, Mustafa. Like, he was one-on-one, he got one-on-one twice, but the angle. So they weren't easy chances by any means.
No, but I think his touch was a little off. Like the first one he gets straight after coming on, when Simi sets him up.
The volley, right?
The
little dink. Yeah. He could have put a little more. He could have had a little more power on it, right? Yeah.
I think if his first touch is a little better there, he gets to the ball sooner and he has the opportunity. And what he really should have done there is gone for the lob. He shouldn't have gone for a normal finish, because Ali Shassal, I thought Ali Shassal was brilliant, by the way. If you look,
he had a good match.
If you watch our rivals' games at any point, if you watched Svenner against Sivas last week, they won, was it 0-5? And
that was
Rize, sorry. Out against Rize, and legitimately, this is not even exaggerating, the first 4 goals out of those 5 were all blunders from the goalkeeper, and not just like little things, right? Like massive glaring mistakes by the goalkeeper. And the other day, Galatasaray won 1-5 in Adana, and first goal, blunder from the goalkeeper, second goal, blunder from the defender. It's like, it's a little easy there. And okay, fair enough, Radakovic playing that handball, that's also a mistake, but I wouldn't say that's a blunder, like that's not a free goal. In a way it is a little bit, I guess, but Ali Shassal, what I was gonna say, he made a very calm, composed impression on me. I thought he had a great game. He did everything right. Don't think he could have done anything about the penalty, because it was a really good penalty, perfect penalty. Ciro waited very long until Ali Shassal essentially had to make a decision and then just put it to the opposite end of him. And the second goal by Gedson, he came out, he did what he had to do, and Gedson lobbed him. there's not much you can do about that, I think. Other than that, Ali Chassal had a perfect game. I thought he came out really well on high balls, always held on to the ball, didn't punch it, didn't drop any balls, didn't create any chaos. He was pure calm, pure. He just, inspired his defense because he was
steadiness. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
and that's what you want from a goalkeeper. And I think the other day Adanaspor, if they had a goalkeeper, obviously they have a 15-year-old kid in goal, so you can't blame that kid. I don't blame him for that
little
mistake
mental
at all.
errors here and there.
But if Rize had a proper goalkeeper, I don't think Fener win there that easily. I wouldn't be surprised if they draw points there. Because people say, oh, but it's 5-0, yeah, but a match snowballs. Like I said earlier, some teams open up after 1 goal, some teams open up after 2 goals. Sivas is the latter. I don't know whether Rize is probably a team that opens up anyway because they are pretty offensive. But like Adana Demirspor before that goal, I thought they were fine. There was no problem, really. They didn't allow any chances yet. They were prodding themselves a little bit. So I think in those types of games, a good goalkeeper can really make the difference. But let's talk about our games. There's something I would like to show you guys. Because I was up late the other day watching the game. The Marathon, or now it's called the Super League... BN Super League, I think is what it's called nowadays. And I wanted to show you this, guys. So this is essentially Sivasspor's defensive shape. You can read, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players within a very compact space. And the only one who's actually coming from higher up is number 1, that's Ray Manai. And he's putting pressure on Musrati there in possession. And everyone else...
Anti-football. Anti-football. That's what I was saying. Look,
you can call it anti-football, but I think it's fine. I think
it was it's sure. You might switch it up after you go down a goal, to be honest, just to try. But it is what it is. If you know that by doing so, you're probably going to give up 4 more goals on the back end. Yeah, to be fair, they were in it till the very end, right? Like if they'd scored 1 goal on the counter, then
they didn't concede another until the 89th minute. And I think what they did is something that a lot of Anatolian teams or a lot of the Super League teams are going to try to do as well. I don't know if they'll be able to do it as well as Sivasspor did, because like you said, when you go a goal down, there's a tendency to open up a little bit, to take a little bit more risks, and they didn't. They kept this compact shape until
very disciplined.
Until like 70-75 minutes into the game. I think that's when they put on Keita Balde on, and they were started to take a little bit more risks, because I don't know if you remember, guys, the other day when the second half started, and like around 60th minute or something, I wrote in our group chat, I said they are prioritizing their defense. They aren't taking, like, they have no options offensively. Like if they win the ball, they didn't have options to play it out to the left or to play it out to the right. And that's why I think, we'll look at it in a second, but their XG for this game was pitiful because
abysmal.
Exactly.
And what was interesting, and actually, so this is where we can start talking about us more too. They put on guys who were really fast, as subs, and I think they were trying to take advantage of fatigue, have guys who were pacey who could get behind us. But like, full credit to our back line, man, especially Felix Uduokai, man. He was so steady. He did not let anything get behind him, especially positionally. But then in the air, he was just aerially dominant. I thought he is a top 3 player for us yesterday. I think you could probably argue that the best player on the pitch was Masuaku, or who am I forgetting?
Rafa Gedson.
Gedson, for sure, yeah. But then I thought Felix Udokai could be right up there as getting votes as one of the best players for us out there.
I don't think he had a lot of work.
Yeah, he didn't have a lot of luck, but also at the same time, a lot of it's probably to do with the opposition. But at the same time, defensively, we've looked the best we've had with him in there. So I think that is important. But as Khan said, Silas didn't really give him a lot to do either. You know. But
think about how many times, like for example, late last year where Cauley would be slow to get back, and like there's always that danger on the counter where someone's just not quite there positionally, or just a little too slow and slightly up, playing too far forward, or we give away a bad pass.
But we weren't.
And in that sense, we were so disciplined.
Yeah.
We were so disciplined and so well formed, and I think obviously partially that's down to tactics, but again, I think Felix Udokai was. You could tell he was playing where he needed to play. He was aware of guys making runs at all times. He was, again, aerially quite dominant. I don't think you can undersell that. There were, like, on corners, on set pieces, he was such a force. Like, he was back there, dominating in the air. So I thought he gave us a lot of positive signs.
He's known for that as well, of coming out of the Bundesliga. Although I think he only won 2 out of 4 aerial duels, so there weren't really that many aerial duels for him to contest.
Yeah, but like even if he wasn't there, like actually putting his head on the ball, right? He's taking up space. He's a physical presence. He's up in the air, kind of cutting off someone else's lane. So like, that's what I mean. I don't necessarily even mean actually heading, but just being present physically. Aerially.
Khan, could you get that image please back up, bro? I just want to make a point.
Yeah, go ahead.
So basically, this is why I think we struggled with creativity in this game. Because see if you look in the middle here, look, there's 6 players right in the middle.
Yeah, so they overloaded the center. They
8, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. They're all waiting in the middle, right? So that gives the likes of Gedson and Rafa less space. All right. Obviously, they started coming a wee bit more at the end, but then we scored quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
But because this is a big reason why we didn't create as many chances. But look out wide here. See, this is where number 10 is. Like this is, I believe that is Rashica there.
Right? Next to number 10.
Yeah. Is that right saying that's Rashica?
Either Rashica or Ciro. Let me zoom in with my magnifying glass, but you're not gonna see this zoom. It's just gonna be me on my screen. Let me see. That is Rashica, yeah. That is And then next to number 9, that's Gedson there, and then Ciro is just above number 5, I think. And Rafa is in between 4 and 5.
So I've been banging on the podcast for months now about why we need a better right winger. One that's creative, one that can beat a man. Because Rashica essentially has a 1-to-1 here, whereas the middle they've overloaded. But because Rashica offensively wasn't good yesterday, he couldn't really take it past his man. His final ball wasn't there. That's why we struggled to create. If we had someone out wide here that was on his day, could take it past the man, could play some good passes, we would have found it a lot easier to open them up.
But also, if he moves more to the right here, he stretches them because he forces number 10 to go with him. That would leave a gap for a pocket of space for Gedson to dive into, or Ciro,
Yeah, so here, exactly. So I know that's a great point, Can. So here, if he's not going to be doing much with the ball, he could at least without it drag that number 10 out of the way to open up a pocket for the central players, your Immobiles, your Jedsons, your Rafas. So yeah, that was a great point as well. But that's what I just thought I'd bring that up, man.
Yeah, I really didn't like Rashica's performance yesterday. I not that he was terrible. Of course, Rashica does his thing. He does his defensive duties and all that. But I thought there were some opportunities where if he was faster, there would have been danger. If he was more skilled on the ball, there would have been danger. And if he was a better crosser of the ball, there would have been a lot of danger. And I think that's one of those things with Rashica is he's not slow, but he's not fast. I think he's, let's put it in like FIFA terms. 80 speed maybe. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
He's pretty fast, but he's not fast enough. Like if he was like an 85, like a Rafa is like a 90 speed. You know, like we need. I think
guys.
Yeah, I know. We'll talk about it.
I know as well.
I think that's one of the things with Rashica. Like his crossing ability is for a winger. This is relative to a winger. I think his crossing ability is average. His dribbling ability is average. His speed is average. His discipline and his work rate is above average. But the problem is that he isn't excellent at any of the offensive attributes, in my opinion, and that is where in games like this you need a better player. You need somebody who can either, like Nkudu, create chaos with speed. Not that Nkudu was an exceptional player by any stretch of the imagination, but you need to be exceptional at a certain aspect of playing that position to create problems.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've been talking about. Like, I think the phrase I used is great. Like, we need, in these situations, we need another dimension to us. And with Rashica and the team, we don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had a right winger to it, that's creative, or can beat his man often, consistently, and then that adds that extra dimension that's going to cause more problems and allow you to create more chances. But Rashica doesn't cut the mustard against these types of teams where they've locked us up down the middle.
Yeah.
Hey guys, can I make a suggestion? We probably want to start wrapping up make some final points on this match and then look at the stats.
Yeah, let's have a look at the stats.
I just want to make one final point about the match in general and about like what it signifies about where we are. Something that I noticed a lot of people getting kind of worked up about early on in the match, before the match when the lineup was announced, was Semi coming off. But it's worth noting that he came off for Ernest Mucci, who played phenomenally.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Well, and this is what I'm going to talk about. First of all, Mucci played phenomenally. I think he earned a start after that really nice
game. You mean?
Against Lugano, right? He came on, made a really nice cameo. So I think he needed to be rewarded for that. And again, I think it's a really positive sign that the rotation we're seeing is between Semi and Mucci, because I think either way we can be happy. We're developing a young player. They're going to push each other, right? It's worth noting that Semi came on and made an immediate impact. As soon, I think if you have two kids who are professional and talented, having to fight, having to earn playing time is only going to be positive. And I think that they're both obviously going to get lots of playing time being in a rotation. It's almost a perfect scenario. So that was just a note I wanted to make.
I do want to make. I didn't think Mucci was very good.
He played very poorly. He needed to be taken out, and so it was great that he could be taken out. We had Semi. He came in and made an impact.
I wouldn't say poorly, but he had very little impact on the game, I thought. And then when Semi came on, he wasn't very good either in the beginning. I think he kind of grew into the game because then he almost set up Mustafa like twice, I think. So he definitely grew into it a little bit. But you could notice, like, when he came on, I had the feeling that he was a little bit agitated, perhaps, by being on the bench. And was finding it difficult to find his footing into the game. But he grew into it, for sure. Anything you want to add to that, Kartal, or shall we move to the stats?
I mean, I think we should talk about Gedson's goal quickly.
Sure.
Because we spoke about the penalty. Speak about Gedson's goal quickly. So it actually was a ball over the top from, I think it was Rashica.
Might have been, I'm not sure. There was no assist credited, at least.
Yeah, it wasn't credited. I think that defender got a piece of it.
Yeah, but that's exactly, so the defender made a huge mistake. It actually came right to him, but he couldn't he was able to header it, but wasn't able to header it forward. It went back the way, and it was a terrible header. And it just fell right in the path of Gedson, and it was a fucking phenomenal finish, though, eh?
It really was, yeah.
Gedson's value has
top tier
skyrocketed.
Yeah.
What's happened to this guy, man? He's all of a sudden got ice in his veins, and he's
went from a 60 finisher to a 75 finisher over the summer.
Kaan, I don't want to steal your thunder, but maybe you want to bring up the Rafa Silva note regarding Gedson's play.
Oh yeah. There was So earlier in the summer, obviously when when Gedson was being linked to Zenit, and again, guys, kiss the hands of Bakhtiar Zainotina for not wanting to go to Russia, because otherwise Gedson would be gone right now.
That's right.
But there was a note earlier in the summer, and I didn't really know whether or not I should take it seriously at the time, but it said that the arrival of Rafa has really put Gedson at ease and made him want to stay. Not that he necessarily wanted to leave. That wasn't really implied, I think, but I think he was very open to an exit. And then when Rafa arrived, it really turned things where he was very happy to stay, despite more money being offered in Russia. And now, yesterday, I think it was Feas Uçar, who said that he confirmed this essentially, that Rafa really has made things easier for Gedson and put him at ease. And we can really see that. Like, Rafa's presence is having a great impact on Gedson. And
for sure.
You know what?
Yeah.
Maybe the arrival of a new player who has history with, especially Rafa, I think he might have some history with Gedson, will be similar.
Another
to that.
Benfiquista,
indeed. Let's talk about the stats first, though. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Let's do that. I added some stats, by the way. I realized I didn't have a discipline stat on there. I didn't realize that the top stats page didn't show the cards, and that's a pretty important aspect of football as well.
So, all right, let me do the main stats here. So we had 67% of the ball, despite going up a goal very early in the match. That's promising, and I think it suggests that we really did dominate this one for the most part. On top of that, we had a 2.38 xG to their 0.19. We had 12 shots to their 7, 8 on target to their 1, 4 big chances to their 0, 2 missed to their obviously 0. We had 507 passes completed, which I suspect might be our highest for the season. And it would make sense because we dominated on the ball more than we have previously in the season. We completed them at an 89% rate, so that's extremely efficient, and that's despite Rashica not completing very many crosses or long balls throughout the match. They completed 212 accurate passes. That's the New York area code, 212, at a 77% rate, so not particularly efficient. We committed 15 fouls to their 9. That's a load of bullshit. I think we could all agree. 1 offside each. We had 5 corners. They had 5 corners. The fouls committed, just a load of shit. Especially, we already talked about how Manai should have probably gotten a yellow, as well as Immobile, so that add 1 to their column. And we could probably think of a number of examples of fouls that weren't called or were undercalled, or that weren't given cards when they should have, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But so anyway, I'll pass it to you, Kartal, for the dual stats.
Yeah. So for the duels won, it's 43 each, so that's 50% both ways. In terms of ground duels, we won 30, they won 37, which means they had 55% of them. Aerial duels, we won 13 to their 6, which means we won 68% of them. In terms of successful dribbles, we had 7, which was a clip of 54%, which would suggest that it was 7 out of 13. For them, they had 11 successful dribbles, which was 65%, which was actually quite impressive for them. So, in terms of discipline, we had 4 yellows. Sinan, you went over these, didn't you? The cards?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't? So it was 4 yellows.
I did fouls committed, but yeah, I guess maybe I should have.
And then, obviously, there was no red card, so it was a 0 apiece.
Yeah, so, definitely a dominant performance from us. And, you do have to take I think you do have to an extent, acknowledge, that they allowed us to dominate possession, and they allowed us to dominate the game. Anything you boys want to add?
Park the bus.
Anything?
No. No, I don't. I think we could probably move on. All I'll say is this was a very commanding performance, despite the fact that we could have created more.
Yeah.
It was a very dominant performance and a calming one. I felt, like I said earlier, I think that's the theme of this match. Calm. I felt very relaxed. Despite the fact that like historically we could give a goal up at any moment. It just didn't feel like it was happening here. Like we really were in
and especially like they were. I think the media was also kind of hammering home the point that we conceded. What was it? 5 goals in like 2 games or something. Was it that? Like 3 against? Oh yeah, 2 against Antalya and then 3 against Lugano. So they were kind of like kind of hammering that point home a little bit, and rightfully so. I think we did a little bit leaky at the back, and this game was definitely very promising. But we need to also acknowledge the fact that Sivasspor had very little offensive intent, and it really looked like their game plan was just hold out as long as possible.
Don't get blown out. Please don't get blown out.
Limit the damage, and then in the end, try to sneak a point on a corner, on a counter, whatever. Because they were, like I said at the top of the show, they were starting to put more offensive players on, and right as they did, we scored. That may also be scary for our other opponents going down the season.
One funny thing that I was just a little touch of like humor maybe, but after Gedson's goal, we kind of like pulled the card right. It was like the Uno reverse. We brought in Emirhan Topçu and Onur Bulut for Rafa Silva and Milot Rashica. So we like double parked the bus. It's like, oh yeah, what are you gonna do now? Now that we're parking, what are you gonna do? But sure enough, they did nothing. So we shut them down. Pretty convincingly.
Certainly not our best performance of the season, or I should say, I think it was a solid performance, guys. Yeah. Like I think people are overly critical, and our fans have already gotten super spoiled in no time. Because we're expecting flashy football every game right now. But it's not possible.
But you're not going to score 5 goals every match.
No,
folks.
exactly.
Relax.
Especially against teams like this. You need to keep in mind against Lugano. I think Lugano, I made the point last week, I think Lugano finishes top 5 in our league easily. However, you need to take into consideration, Lugano were in a position last week where they had to score to go through. They couldn't just 85 minutes sit back and wait and then hope to do it in the last 5 minutes. That doesn't work in that scenario. It's not a league scenario. Sivasspor can go to Beşiktaş, they can go to Fenerbahçe, they can go to Galatasaray, and they can say, okay, you know what, we're gonna park the bus, we're gonna frustrate them as long as possible, and then in the end, we're gonna try to hurt them a little bit on the break. Usually, most of the time, teams play defensively, but they still commit like 3 players to attack at least. Yesterday, Sivasspor committed at most 2, which was Manay and Pritchard. And really, that was at most, because like I said, showed with that image, again, that's 9 people behind the ball and 1 chasing after it. That's 9 people behind the ball. So there's no, in this scenario, let's say Manay here wins the ball. What's he gonna do? Like, he doesn't have options. Like, so his hit, obviously number 5 and number 6 there, and number 2 can start storming up the wings. But if he wins the ball here, he doesn't have an option on either side for at least a couple of seconds. And obviously our players close him down or whatever. So usually you have like this number 5 or number 6 or whatever is a little bit higher up. It's closer to the lowest left that you can see there, just next to the BN Super League image. That's usually where one of those guys would be, in between that player and the player in between, Rafa, in between 4 and 5. That's usually where there's a pocket of space where somebody would be offensively in case they win the ball back. They didn't do this. Sivasspor were extremely defensive, so I do think that the lack of flashy football, the lack of chances created, perhaps, all that can be credited to that, and should be credited to Sivasspor, who were very stubborn and, obviously didn't frustrate us that much because we went up pretty early. But that's definitely something to take into account. Any closing thoughts on the game, guys?
No.
No.
All right then.
We've got like 6 minutes, Con. So let's wrap. We got a lot of news to talk about. There he is. There he is.
So here we see a picture of Rafa Silva hugging, embracing number 20 of Benfica, João Mario. João, I should say, if you're from Porto.
João, yeah.
João Mario, obviously former player of Inter Milan and the Portuguese national team too. And he has been playing for Benfica over the last couple of years. He played for Sporting as well, briefly. João Mario, it looks like he's coming, guys. Tomorrow, expected in Istanbul. Very versatile player. He can play pretty much any position in midfield and on the wings. He can play left winger, right winger, behind the striker, central midfielder, attacking midfielder, defensive midfielder. Whether or not he ticks the boxes of what we need, that's something we'll have to wait and see. But I think we do need to keep in mind as well, guys. We were all a little bit hesitant, I think. We should say, at least, a little bit hesitant on whether or not Ciro Immobile was the right fit, given, his last season and all that. So I think we need to trust the process a little bit. I am also not 100% sure whether or not he is going to be the only transfer. I wouldn't be surprised if, because we're still linked with Buonanni. And maybe we should also mention this right now for those people who are wondering, hey, but what happened to Angelo Gabriel, who, maybe don't follow the Turkish news so closely. So he is on the verge of signing for Al Nassr. Yes, Al Nassr
28 mil or something, right?
23 million euros. So the situation there is obviously Chelsea want money, and we couldn't offer them that. We could only offer them a loan with at best an option to buy, but they were insisting on a very high option to buy of around 20 million. That is not necessarily realistic. I think 15 million is kind of pushing it for us. 20 million it's probably not going to happen. I think so. Yeah,
it's worth noting Al Nassr are serial Beşiktaş trolls.
I know.
Somehow
they
freaking
really are.
It's worth. Of course they wear blue and yellow, because why wouldn't they? Those snakes.
Isn't it
yellow
green
is a
and
theme.
yellow? I think they have horribly ugly.
The yellow, though. Any club who wears yellow needs to be looked at with intense scrutiny. Put it that way.
100%. Let us know in the comments, guys, how you feel. Your initial reactions to João Mario being our new player. So anyway, Angelo Gabriel looks like it's completely off the table. Buonanni from Nice. There might be something there still. I'm not sure. I can't really say much. But there might be something still. But we'll see. And also, are we still going to bring in a left back or a right back? There were...
Trippier talks, rumors.
Kieran Trippier was a rumor as well. Not somebody I'm super fond of. He's what, 33, 34? I think he's not... For a fullback, that's not a good age, I think.
One thing I'll say, though, that supports that rumor is I heard, I can't remember if it was Dikme or Ertan Suzgun, or, it was one of the usual suspects who said that we were trying to get a foreigner who could both play left and right back to sort of fix both of those problems in one swoop, if you will.
In that regard,
so that would be supporting the Trippier rumors, theoretically.
So you need to keep in mind that the Euros, he played left back the entire tournament, essentially. For England. He just retired for the English national team. But, should take that into account as well. I think he was one of their worst players at the Euros, but he was playing against his foot. It's not necessarily a grateful job to have to do that.
He played 7 games as well, so that counts for something.
Sorry?
It's a high-level tournament. Playing 6 out of 7 games counts for something.
Yeah, in a preeminent tournament, for sure.
For sure.
For a theoretically top side, that could be argued.
And it's not a player with a huge watch list of injuries either. Like, he had some injuries this past season that took him out for a while. But that's a decent option. I mean, look, I'm not super excited about it, but I do think right now Masuaku and Svensson like taking them out doesn't make much sense. And if you bring in somebody that can cover for both of them, that's a no-brainer, right? Like that's two birds, one stone.
Is Kieran Trippier going to come to Turkey to sit on the bench? I don't think so.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I mean, he might theoretically take one of those guys' jobs, but that's what you want. You want competition for theoretically every position. Yeah. Ideally. So.
Yeah. Some thoughts from you guys on João Mario, because I kind of gave mine already, but Kat, let's start with you.
I think I'm not too excited, man. The guy's 31 already. I think we've got enough vets in the team. I don't think we need any more. Same goes for Trippier as well. The guy's not really a winger that's known for like being tricky or being fast. His chance creation, apart from in general, has not really been that good either. Like he's not had any seasons over 2. So I was looking for someone that's like a bit more known for creating chances, someone a bit more tricky. Angelo, basically.
Yeah.
But that's not happening now. I'm kind of hoping that the reason why we're bringing Mario is because Onana's gone, and Mario will be used as a midfielder.
Ah, that's true. Onana, it's worth noting, was not in the team sheet.
So I kind of hope that's the case, and then we still sign another winger.
Guys, by the way, this is true. It said that we're paying $5 million for João Mario,
it's a lot of money for a 31-year-old.
Yeah, I mean,
but 31 isn't.
It's not that old.
Right?
I mean,
he's got at least like 3 more years of productive football in theory.
Yeah, but let's be honest. But Rafa came off with the best season in his career. See, to be fair, Mario had a great season 2 seasons ago.
The season before last, I was going to say, yeah, he's only 1 year removed from his best season of his career, too.
Last year, it wasn't very good, but who knows, maybe that's down to the way Roger Schmidt used him. I don't know, but I can't say I'm too excited, but he's not a bad player. He's clearly not a bad player.
Yeah.
And if the real reason he's coming is because Onana's leaving, I think that's actually very exciting if we sign another winger. If we get Mario and a winger, I think that'd be brilliant.
Don't you think that's being very hopeful though, given the fact that we're already so late in the window?
Yeah, we'll still get a couple of days, man. So Galatasaray's making a lot of moves.
Yeah, we do still.
Get the guys out. Why not? Why not? We've seen plenty of deadline days.
Would you like some first-hand opinions on João Mario from a Benfiquista?
If you have the time for it, Kaan.
I do. That's fine. So you might know him, Adrian Souza, who from Rabona TV. If you guys watch a lot of football shows on YouTube, you'll definitely have come across Rabona TV. He does some fantastic content, so definitely go check that out. So I messaged him last week when these rumors first came up, and I said, "Hey again, Adrian. Could I get your thoughts on João Mario, and if things heat up further, would you be up to be on the show, blah, blah, blah." And he answered, "Hello, well, if this was 2 seasons ago, brilliant, and I would be sad to see him go. However, despite his play not always being great, he has consistently been a favorite of Roger Smith's, which is quite frustrating. Not only that, but Roger Smith will find a way to put him anywhere. Behind the striker, on the wing, deep in the midfield, instead of giving other players opportunities. So it's a bit 2 things happening at the same time with Roger Smith, overplaying him when his form doesn't really deserve it, as well as João Mario's form dropping a bit recently. However, I think that he can still be utilized well as a central midfielder that links up play more. He used to get a lot of goals and assists for Benfica, but that dried off last season. But as a central midfielder, even sitting a bit deeper at times, he could still be very useful to you as he has great control, good vision, he can ping a pass fairly well, and he can be a good finisher now and then as well, but that died off as mentioned. All of this leads to Benfiquistas not being too sad about his departure should it happen, not because he's overly bad, just overutilized, and now we're all kind of wanting to turn a new page. You also need to keep in mind, by the way, guys, they are having a terrible start to the season. They lost essentially their best player, Rafa. Like, their season so far is not going well at all.
I mean, that's we took the best player from him.
Yeah. And this is also like, I'll show you this, I'll just show you on my camera here, but I don't know if you can see that. But that's all the positions Joao Mario has played.
He plays everywhere apart from defense, striker.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So it's really like, you need to keep that in mind as well when you're looking at his stats. Like, you can't scrutinize him through the eye of a winger, for example. Like, when you're looking at, okay, I want to see a player with 2 chances created per game or whatever, like that. Like, you can't scrutinize him like that because
he plays like 10 games as a six.
like exactly. And some closing thoughts. To answer your question, however, some of his best performances for us came as a playmaker on the wing. He would often be listed as a left winger, but he would drift inside on his right foot, often combining with the fullback and the striker to overload that side. So he can definitely
make room for
play
Masuaku on the side
role.
there and come in.
I guess I should say that I personally wouldn't want him in that role anymore at Benfica in particular, because we have much better wingers for that position, and think he kind of falls into a deep-lying midfielder / central midfielder based on our squad. So if that's what he is being bought for, then he is a decent option. I think that refers to the creative winger, because I asked him, because I told him that's kind of what we were after. Especially since Benfica is apparently willing to not stand in his way as far as what we would demand for his transfer fee. Well, I still think 5 million for a player that is 31 going on 32. That's a decent fee, man. I can't complain about that.
And we'll see. I mean, we'll see if that's actually what we pay in the end. But yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like what you said is important to note, especially regarding like chances created per match or whatever, per 90 minutes. I think he's got a great pedigree. He's played for a lot of big clubs who play for almost the same type of silverware we're playing for, right? Like the Portuguese title and maybe some special sort of European flair to hang your hat on or whatever it is. But it's almost the same.
And he's also
profile.
a 50 odd times Portuguese international. He needs to take that into the
and it's
account
also
as well.
Exactly. And another great thing about his stats, if you look at his career, he's very healthy. Obviously, he plays almost every match, every season. He doesn't seem to be sitting out very often. So, right, I noticed he had like 251 match seasons in a row this last 2 years. So, I mean, you can rely on him theoretically, to play in a lot of different places. I think, Kartal, you're right that if we can get another young wing or something to put us at ease there, that could make everyone feel a little bit better. But again, who knows? He's also coming to the Super League where, and on a well-established team that has things going well. So maybe he just slots in as just that little extra piece that we need. He doesn't have to be the marquee signing because we have Rafa Silva, Immobile. We've made our big moves, so he's just kind of.
Yeah, I think
if we adding this luxury right now.
If we would have gotten somebody with Angelo's profile and he works out, I think that would have made us almost favorites for the championship. Quite honestly, I think this puts us a little bit off of that, but we'll have to wait and see how maybe he has a fantastic impact, new surroundings. Look at just before you say, but Kartal, but look at some of our players from last season, like. They made a great observation on the post-match show on BN. There's only 4 or 5 new players in this side, and our team was completely useless last season. Don't forget that. Yeah. And suddenly, players like Masuaku, Svensson, of course, was looking decent already last season, but Rasicka, all these guys that are still in there. And obviously, I think you kind of have to count Al Musrati as a new player too, but. Like, we've gone from last season looking like a completely uninspired team to now being a very good team and a force to be reckoned with. And if you slot in a good footballer in that, and he can adjust to the playstyle and all that, and I know for a fact Gio has good talks with a player before he signs off of them on them, then, like, I think a guy like João Mario, who might be a little bit down on his luck right now with Benfica, keep in mind, Benfica have been struggling. Last season, they got 82 points, but, missed out on the championship. We're way behind Sporting, didn't have a good season. Started of the season poorly now as well. The Benfica fans have been calling for Schmidt's head for months. I think he only just got sacked. I don't know if he actually got sacked. I think he might have just gotten sacked, but yeah. Sorry now, Catholic, with your...
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no reason to panic until Thursday. That's the way I see it. Still time, if we can offload the players we want to offload, like, we could, that creative right winger that we're looking for still might come. And then you could have João Mario maybe on the left wing, maybe playing midfield sometimes, just filling in where necessary. I mean, I think, but at the same time though, if he's going to be a utility guy, I think 5 million's a lot. So there's that as well. But I mean,
Galatasaray I just paid 20 mil for a utility guy, right?
Yeah, who's that?
The Sara guy, right? I mean, that's what they were all saying. Oh. He's like
I don't think he's a utility guy. I think he's gonna...
That's what he was being described as on Twitter. I can't say I'm an expert on championship
you can see
football.
That. You don't need to watch him for 20 games to notice. Like, he's if they utilize him well, he'll be the successor to Mertes. I'm not saying he'll have those numbers, but
Yeah.
I mean, just supposedly his profile was he's played all over. I was just commenting on someone else's comments on Twitter,
but look, if we sign another right winger, I'll be okay, I think. But I think we still need that to sign a right winger as well and a left back before I'm happy. Honest.
Yep, I think we're all on the same page with that. Shall we wind down with the comments, Sinan?
Sure. Do you want to do it? Yeah, if we have time.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, to the top. Good evening, Black Eagles. So, good to have the 3 Musketeers all in one place again. Go Ahead Eagles. Isn't Go Ahead Eagles like a club in...
It sure is, yeah.
Netherlands or something?
Yeah. It's a club in the Netherlands. I think they're even in the Eredivisie right now.
Yeah. Sunshine Man also says, my heart sank when Sivas captain Gunesh failed our Rafa. He should have been instantly tossed, but then again, this is Turkey. I don't even recall that, but I'm sure it's true. He says, Udokai looked very comfortable in his new uniform, almost winning all headers. Yeah. Carlito, and great that he can do damage in corners like Paulista. So I guess people are agreeing with me regarding his aerial supremacy.
Yeah, but defensive supremacy in the air is not the same as offensive supremacy in the air, right? Like, you still have to be able to, like, winning a header and, like, placing it in a goal is a different thing.
Yeah, either way, though. What I said was that he was very dominant in the air.
But I'm just saying, it's not because he's dominant in the air at the back that he'll necessarily score 8 goals like Colli,
Well, yeah, who knows about that? Well, that remains to be seen. Sivas had no intention for getting 3 points. The tie was all they were shooting for. You already talked about Yusuf's comments. Grey Wolf, the ref was horrible. He did not want to give the penalty. How did he miss it? I do not understand Sivasspor's strategy of playing full defense when they're losing 1-0. I thought the ref was going to give us a red card at some point of the game, giving me PTSD from that year when they gave us 5 cards at the restart in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I still have PTSD of that as well.
Carlito says, the quality of the Super League teams is really low this year. We'll come across this tactic many times, which is also not new. I mean, I think what Kaan said earlier is probably true, though, that most teams will open up a little bit when they go down a goal. So hopefully...
Yeah, and I don't know how many teams are disciplined enough and organized enough to execute this well enough to contain us, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Atul John says, João Mario seems to be coming. Carlito, looks like Abu's going nowhere. Would it be an option in your view to bring him back as a sub, especially against a team like Sivas, even next to Ciro? Oof, that's a whole can of worms. I don't know if we have time to open up right now. Grey Wolf, there was a few times the player on top was going for a run, but they were never played. The pass never came. How are the club's finances? One thing I will say is it did feel like we were maybe trying a little in the first half, especially to kind of pass the ball into the back of the net. Maybe we could have had a few rips from distance, but then I guess that's where like a João Mario or someone who can do something from the outside of the penalty box will be more effective. You guys have any thoughts on that?
I like the way we try and
get it in
methodically.
methodically.
I think our passing game has been very successful so far. So why change it? I'm not saying never shoot, but I think.
I just mean to unlock a team like that. But anyway, let's move on. Carlito, Beşiktaş is said to pay $5 million for him. Grey Wolf, do we need another midfielder? Jason, wow, what a pull. Rabona is amazing. I think he's talking about your interview. Atul John says, I'm a full-blown Al Nasser hater. And that's probably a good point to leave things on. I think we all are these days.
Definitely. All right, this will do it, I think, for this episode, guys. Before we go out, of course, do consider joining us on Patreon. So let me just bring that up. Consider becoming a Black Eagle VIP member for just $1.99 a month. You can support the podcast and get a lot of new cool content. So with that content that exclude a VIP exclusive audio podcast, but also, for example, last week after the Lugano game, we did a video analysis of the match with the highlights and the footage and all that kind of stuff we cannot show on YouTube, but we can show on Patreon. And we did live reactions. Yas and I did a live reaction to the Europa League stage draws, and we'll do more that kind of stuff as well, but especially the VIP audio feed for just a little bit more Black Eagles content every week for just a cup of coffee, but 7-day free trial. So if you haven't yet started your 7-day free trial on Patreon, you can go and do so now and check out all the available content that is already on there. And of course, over the course of the next 7 days, all the content that is going to be added there as well. I am also still planning to do some extra content this week with Yasin. We're going to start the rest aspect of the Black Eagles podcast, where we focus a little bit more on the rest of the Super League, and we'll be pumping out some other content. Obviously, in the next couple of weeks, we will be putting out previews for the Europa League opponents. I'm lining up interviews for that right now, and that will come in the course of the next couple of weeks. Of course, our first game is, I think, on the 26th against Ajax, so expect that one first, of course. Other than that, lots of new content coming. Consider joining us on Patreon, supporting us on Patreon, but if you don't want to, or you simply can't, then always subscribing and liking is massive for us. So please, if you're watching right now, drop a like and hit that notification bell and the subscribe button if you haven't yet. That'll do it for me for this episode of the Black Eagles podcast. Sinan, you can take us out, my dear sir.
I don't care how many foreign strikers Galatasaray buys and spends way too much money on. Let's go Beşiktaş! Peace out, everybody.
Şimdi Bobo'nun önüne. Bobo aldı. Bobo girdi. Bobo çok babasın. Çok harikasın. Çok güzelsin. Harika.